Marcus. Jun adjusted his rifle scope one final time. As he lay concealed among the crystalline formations of Kepler 442b, the alien landscape glittered like broken glass under the planet's twin suns, providing perfect camouflage for his position. 3 kilometers away, the Zephyrian Imperial Command Post buzzed with activity, completely unaware that death watched them through enhanced optics. The human resistance had been fighting the Galactic Empire for 18 months now, ever since the Zephyrians had declared humanity a primitive species unfit for galactic citizenship. What followed was systematic extermination, disguised as planetary cleansing. Entire colonies had been reduced to ash. Billions of humans dead or enslaved. Marcus had lost everything in the initial attacks. His wife Sarah, his daughter Emma, his parents all vaporized when the Zephyrians glassed New Shanghai colony. He had been off-world on a hunting expedition when it happened, returning to find nothing but a crater where his life used to be. That was when the rage began, cold and calculating, turning him from a recreational marksman into the most feared sniper in the Resistance. "Overwatch, this is Ghost 7, Marcus whispered into his comm unit. "I have eyes on the target. General Vexthal is moving to the observation deck." "Copy that, Ghost 7. You are cleared to engage. Make it count." Through his scope, Marcus watched the reptilian general emerge onto the platform. Vexthal was the architect of the human genocide, the monster who had personally ordered the destruction of 12 human worlds. Intelligence suggested he was here to oversee the final assault on Earth itself. This was humanity's chance to cut off the snake's head. Marcus controlled his breathing, feeling his heartbeat slow to that familiar rhythm. In the zone, everything became simple. Wind speed, distance, target movement, gravity differential, all variables calculated in milliseconds by a mind honed through years of practice and months of desperate warfare. The general paused at the platform's edge, raising some kind of viewing device to survey the surrounding terrain. Perfect. Marcus held his breath, found the stillness between heartbeats, and squeezed the trigger. The hypersonic round crossed 3 kilometers in 1.2 seconds. Marcus watched through his scope as it struck Vexthal center mass, the alien general's torso simply disintegrating from the impact. Chaos erupted in the command post as Zephyrian soldiers scrambled to locate the shooter. "Target down," Marcus reported, already beginning to disassemble his rifle. "Moving to extraction point Alpha." But as he packed his equipment, something felt wrong. The alien response seemed too organized, too quick. Zephyrian aircraft were already moving in precise search patterns, cutting off his planned escape routes. Marcus frowned as he studied their formations. They knew exactly where to look. "Overwatch, I think we have a problem. They're moving like they knew my position in advance." "Impossible." "Ghost 7, your location was classified to 3 people maximum." Marcus shouldered his pack and began moving through the crystal formations, but the aircraft were closing in fast. He could see ground troops deploying in perfect positions to intercept him. Someone had betrayed the mission, fed the aliens his exact coordinates and timing. "Overwatch, I'm compromised. They're hurting me like they planned this." The comm channel crackled with static, then went dead. Marcus cursed and switched to emergency frequencies, but found only silence. He was on his own, which had happened before. What bothered him was how precisely the Zephyrians were moving. This wasn't random searching, this was a trap. He made it another 2 kilometers before the energy weapons started firing. Bright blue bolts seared past him as he dove behind a massive crystal outcropping. The shots weren't aimed to kill, he realized. They were hurting him toward a specific location, cutting off every avenue of escape except one narrow valley. Marcus had walked into enough ambush to recognize the tactics. The aliens wanted him alive, which meant they knew exactly who he was. Ghost 7, the phantom sniper who had killed over 200 Zephyrian officers in 6 months. The human they'd nicknamed the Reaper in their own intelligence reports. "Human sniper," an amplified voice echoed across the crystal field. The words were in accented English, spoken through some kind of translation device. "You are surrounded." Surrender now, and your death will be quick. Marcus checked his ammunition, 3 full magazines plus his sidearm. Not nearly enough for a sustained firefight against an entire battalion. But he'd rather die fighting than give the aliens the satisfaction of capture. "Come and get me," he shouted back, settling behind cover with his rifle ready. The assault began immediately. Energy weapons lit up the crystal formations as Zephyrian soldiers advanced from multiple directions. Marcus picked his targets carefully, each shot dropping an alien warrior with precision that bordered on supernatural. His rifle sang its deadly song as he worked the bolt action, brass casings tinkling on the crystalline ground, but for every Zephyrian he killed, 2 more took their place. They kept coming in waves, accepting massive casualties to pin him down. Marcus began to understand this wasn't about capturing a strategic target anymore. This had become personal for them. His rifle clicked empty during the 4th wave. Marcus drew his sidearm and kept fighting, but the aliens had finally learned to coordinate their attacks properly. Energy bolts came from every direction now, keeping him pinned while they closed the distance. A blast caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around behind his cover. The pain was incredible. Zephyrian energy weapons didn't just burn, they seemed to attack the nervous system directly. Marcus gritted his teeth and kept firing, but his aim was suffering. Another bolt hit his leg, dropping him to one knee. Then another caught his rifle arm, and his pistol went spinning away across the crystal field. Marcus slumped against his cover, bleeding and helpless as Zephyrian soldiers surrounded his position. They emerged from concealment cautiously, weapons trained on him from every angle. Their reptilian faces showed what might have been satisfaction behind their breathing apparatus. The squad leader approached slowly, speaking into a device in their clicking language. "The infamous Ghost 7, the leader said in English, pulling off his helmet to reveal scales and predatory yellow eyes. "You have caused us considerable trouble, human. 14 of my clutch brothers died because of your weapon." Marcus said nothing, conserving his strength. He studied the aliens surrounding him, looking for any weakness, any opportunity. But they were professionals, no gaps in their formation, weapons never wavering. "I am Commander Cystic," the leader continued. "I knew your kind when we conquered your outer colonies. Soft creatures who died easily and begged for mercy. But you fight like something else entirely. We are curious to learn what makes you different." They bound his hands with energy restraints that burned his wrists, then hauled him to his feet. Marcus stumbled but stayed upright, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing him fall. The Zephyrians seemed amused by his defiance. A transport aircraft settled onto the crystal field with a low humming sound. As they dragged him toward it, Marcus caught sight of something that made his blood run cold. Another human figure was visible through the aircraft's transparent sections, someone in resistance uniform, very much alive and apparently unharmed, the traitor. Someone from his own unit had sold him out, traded his location for whatever the aliens had offered. Marcus memorized every detail of the figure he could see, burning the image into his mind. If he somehow survived this, there would be a reckoning. The aircraft's interior was designed for Zephyrian physiology, too hot, too humid, with a strange reddish lighting that hurt human eyes. They strapped him into a restraint chair, and the transport lifted off, carrying him toward whatever fate the aliens had planned. "Where are you taking me?" Marcus asked. Commander Cystic settled into a seat across from him, yellow eyes studying the human with obvious fascination. "To a place where we can explore your capabilities properly? Your species has proven surprisingly resilient in certain individuals. We wish to understand why. Going to dissect me like some lab animal? Eventually. But first, we want to test your limits. How much pain can a human endure? How long before your mind breaks? How do we properly motivate your kind to serve our purposes?" The alien's lipless mouth curved in what might have been a smile. "You will help us learn to break your entire species." Marcus closed his eyes and tried to center himself for what was coming. He had always known capture was a possibility in this war, had mentally prepared for torture and death. But knowing the aliens planned to use his suffering to perfect techniques for enslaving humanity added a bitter edge to his rage. The flight took 6 hours. carrying them to a facility built into an asteroid in this system's outer belt. The complex was vast, clearly designed as some kind of research installation. As they docked, Marcus could see other ships coming and going. This was a major operation, not some temporary outpost. They dragged him through corridors filled with incomprehensible alien technology. The walls were lined with what looked like viewing ports, behind which Marcus caught glimpses of other prisoners from various species. The Zephyrians apparently made a practice of studying their enemies in detail. His destination was a chamber deep in the facility's core, filled with devices whose purpose was unmistakably sinister. Restraint tables. The pain continued for hours. Neural disruptors sent cascading agony through every nerve fiber in Marcus's body while the Zephyrian researchers recorded their data with clinical detachment. They tested his responses to different types of torture, electrical, chemical, psychological pressure points that targeted human brain chemistry specifically. Remarkable, Dr. Veshith observed, studying her instruments. Pain tolerance is 3 times higher than our models predicted. And look at these neural patterns he's actually adapting to the stimuli. Marcus had long since stopped trying to track time. The aliens rotated shifts while keeping him conscious through chemical means, ensuring he couldn't escape into unconsciousness. They mapped every pathway of human suffering with scientific precision, building a database that would help them break his entire species, but something else was happening that the Zephyrians didn't understand. Each wave of agony was changing Marcus in ways that went beyond simple endurance. The pain was burning away everything human about him except the core of pure rage that had driven him. Since New Shanghai's destruction, he was becoming something else entirely, a weapon forged in alien torture. Chambers. Subject is entering an interesting psychological state, the lead researcher reported to Commander Sistik during one observation period. Stress indicators suggest complete disassociation from normal human emotional responses. We may be witnessing the creation of what their military calls a berserker state. Continue the procedures, Sistik ordered. I want to understand the upper limits of human transformation under extreme duress. They brought in specialists from the Zephyrian Military's Psychological Warfare Division. Experts who had broken the minds of a dozen different species, each with their own unique fears and vulnerabilities. They showed Marcus holographic recordings of human colonies being destroyed, of his wife and daughter's final moments captured by surveillance systems before New Shanghai was glassed. Your family died screaming, one of the psychological specialists hissed in his ear. Your daughter called for you as the plasma fire consumed her. Where were you then, Great Protector? Marcus stared at the recordings with eyes that had gone completely cold. The part of him that would have been destroyed by such images was already gone, burned away in the neural disruptors. What remained was something the aliens had never encountered before, a human mind that had moved beyond all normal psychological parameters. He's not responding to emotional manipulation anymore, the specialist reported with confusion. All normal fear and grief responses have been completely suppressed. It's like he's achieved some kind of transcendent state. Then we move to physical extremes, Dr. Veshith decided. Begin tissue removal procedures. We'll map his pain responses at the cellular level. They started with his fingers, using surgical lasers to remove flesh layer by layer while keeping him conscious and aware. Marcus watched them work with detached interest, his mind floating in a space beyond normal human experience. The pain was still there, but it had become something abstract, data points in a system that no longer defined his existence. Neural activity is off all our charts, one technician reported nervously. His brain patterns don't match any known sapient species. It's like he's rewiring his own nervous system in real time. Hours passed, then days. Marcus lost count of how many procedures they performed, how many different ways they found to inflict suffering. His body was a map of Zephyrian scientific curiosity surgical scars, burn patterns from energy weapons, neural implants that monitored his responses to various stimuli, but through it all, something was growing inside him. A cold fire that fed on the alien torture, transforming their cruelty into fuel for something they couldn't comprehend. Marcus could feel his humanity slipping away piece by piece, replaced by something harder and infinitely more dangerous. The subject appears to be entering some kind of metamorphic state, Dr. Vashith noted during her daily report to the station commander. His physiological responses are evolving beyond our baseline parameters. We may need to terminate the experiment before he becomes dangerous. Impossible, Commander Cystic laughed. He's strapped to a table, missing 3 fingers and half his muscle mass. How could he possibly be dangerous? That was when the station's proximity alarms began to sound. Sir, we have multiple contacts approaching on intercept vectors, the communications officer reported. Configuration suggests human resistance vessels. Marcus smiled for the first time in days, the expression terrible on his ravaged face. The aliens had been so focused on their experiments that they'd forgotten the most important rule of warfare: never leave an enemy operative alive long enough to be rescued. How could they have found this location? Cystic demanded. The answer came through Marcus's broken lips in a whisper that carried perfectly in the chamber silence. Because I wanted them to. Zephyrion stared at him in confusion until Dr. Vashith checked her instruments and went rigid with shock. The neural implants we've been using to monitor him, he's been using them to transmit data. Every procedure, every pain response, every moment of this torture has been broadcast to human intelligence networks. But that's impossible, the commander protested. Those implants only have short-range capability. Marcus laughed, the sound carrying no trace of sanity or mercy. You never understood what you were dealing with. Humans don't just adapt to pain, we adapt to everything. Your implants, your neural networks, your own technology turned against you. The truth was both simpler and more complex than the aliens could grasp. Marcus had indeed been changed by their torture, but not in the way they expected. His mind had been rewired by agony into something that could interface directly with their technology, turning their own tools into weapons against them, every neural probe they'd used to map. His responses had also given him access to their systems. While they tortured his body, his transformed consciousness had been infiltrating their networks, learning their security protocols, mapping their weaknesses. He'd used their own monitoring equipment to send targeting data to the resistance fleet. The station shuddered as human weapons began tearing through its outer defenses. Marcus could hear the Zephyrians shouting orders in their native tongue as they tried to organize a response, but it was too late. The resistance had planned this assault with perfect intelligence about the station's layout and defensive capabilities. Release him immediately, Cystic ordered his guards. We'll use him as a hostage to negotiate our withdrawal. But when they tried to unlock the restraints, they found the systems unresponsive. Marcus had used his neural interface to lock down the facility's entire computer network. The aliens were trapped in their own research station while human forces carved through their defenses. You can't do this, Dr. Vashith protested. You're just one human. Our technology is centuries ahead of yours. Your mistake, Marcus replied, his voice carrying harmonics that shouldn't have been possible with human vocal cords, was assuming that evolution only moves forward. Sometimes it moves in directions you can't imagine. The chamber doors exploded inward as human special forces breached the facility's core. Marcus saw familiar faces among the rescue team: Sarah Kim from the Korean sector, David Rodriguez from Mars Colony Resistance, Amy Chun from his own unit. They'd come for him just as he'd known they would, but they stopped short when they saw him, their faces showing confusion and something approaching fear. Marcus realized he must look different to them now, changed in ways that went beyond mere physical damage. Marcus? Sarah called out hesitantly. Is that really you? What's left of me, he answered, and they all stepped back at the sound of his voice. The Zephyrian researchers were backing away from the restraint table, as if it held some kind of dangerous predator. Commander Cystic was speaking rapidly into his communicator, probably calling for evacuation. They all seemed to understand that something had gone terribly wrong with their experiment. Get me out of these restraints, Marcus said to his rescue team. We have work to finish here. Sarah moved forward with cutting tools, but hesitated when she saw the neural implants covering his skull. Marcus, what did they do to you? Your brain patterns are showing on our scanners as completely alien. They tried to learn how to break humanity, Marcus explained as the restraints fell away. Instead, they taught me how to break them. He stood slowly, his damaged body moving with fluid precision that defied its injuries. The Zephyrian neural modifications had changed more than just his mind. His entire nervous system had been rewired into something optimized for warfare. Every movement was calculated. Every gesture carried the potential for lethal force. Commander Sistek raised his weapon, but Marcus was already moving. The human crossed the chamber in a blur of motion that seemed impossible given his injuries. Disarming the alien commander and breaking his neck before anyone else could react? Impossible, Dr. Vesheth whispered. The damage to his musculature should prevent any coordinated movement. You rebuilt me, Marcus said, turning toward her with eyes that reflected light like mirrors. Made me into something better suited for killing your kind. Thank you for the improvements. The other Zephyrians tried to flee, but Marcus moved through them like death itself. His transformed nervous system allowed him to predict their movement. The Resistance medical bay fell silent as Dr. Elena Vasquez completed her examination of Marcus. Her instruments showed readings that defied everything she knew about human biology. Brain activity patterns unlike anything in medical literature, nervous system modifications that shouldn't have been survivable, and cellular changes that seemed to be accelerating rather than stabilizing. I don't know what they did to you, she admitted, reviewing the scans for the third time. Your neural pathways have been completely rewired. You're processing information at speeds that would burn out a normal human brain, and your reaction times are beyond anything we've measured. Marcus sat on the examination table, his scarred hands steady as he studied the data she'd collected. The Zephyrian implants were still active in his skull, but now they served him rather than his captors. Through them, he could interface with human computers, alien technology, even biological systems in ways that should have been impossible. The question, he said in that new harmonics-laden voice, is whether you see me as an asset or a threat. Dr. Vasquez chose her words carefully. You're still human, Marcus. Changed, but human. What concerns me is how stable these modifications are. We don't know if they'll continue evolving or if your system will eventually reject them. They'll continue evolving, Marcus replied with disturbing certainty. That was the point. The Zephyrians didn't just torture me, they tried to create the perfect human weapon. They succeeded, just not in the way they intended. Admiral Harrison entered the medical bay, her face grim. The Resistance leader had aged years in the months since Earth's colonies had started falling to the Galactic Empire. Marcus, we need to discuss your mission report. The data you retrieved from that research station, it's beyond anything we'd hoped for. Complete biological and psychological profiles of 17 different species, Marcus confirmed. Detailed weakness analysis, optimal torture protocols, strategies for cultural manipulation and population control. The Zephyrians have been perfecting conquest techniques for centuries. And now we have all of it, Harrison said. The question is how we use this information. Some of our allies might not appreciate learning how thoroughly they've been studied by the Empire. Marcus stood, his movements carrying that fluid precision that unsettled everyone who watched him. We use it to win the war. Every species the Empire has conquered, every world they've claimed, we now know exactly how to liberate them. It's not that simple. The political ramifications. Politics won't matter when the Zephyrians glass Earth, Marcus interrupted. They're not coming to conquer us anymore, Admiral. My escape has changed their calculus. They're coming to exterminate us completely. Dr. Vasquez pulled up intelligence reports on her tablet. Our sources confirm massive fleet movements in Zephyrian space. They're pulling forces from 12 different sectors, concentrating them for what appears to be a final assault on Sol System. Because they're afraid, Marcus said, accessing the Resistance computer network through his neural implants. The ease with which he interfaced with their systems was both impressive and concerning. The research data shows they've never encountered a species that could adapt to their modification techniques. We're an unknown variable in their calculations. Admiral Harrison studied him carefully. Are we talking about humanity in general, or you specifically? Both, I'm just the first. Every human they capture and try to break will emerge changed. We don't just survive their torture, we evolve from it. That terrifies them more than any weapon we could build. The conversation was interrupted by urgent alarms throughout the Resistance base. Communications Officer Peters burst into the medical bay with barely contained panic written across his face. Admiral, we're receiving distress calls from the Kepler mining stations. Zephyrian attack fleets are hitting all our outer positions simultaneously. They're not trying to capture territory, they're burning everything. Marcus was already moving before the Admiral could respond. His enhanced nervous system processing tactical data faster than anyone else in the room. It's a feint. They're drawing our forces away from Sol System while their main fleet approaches Earth? How can you be so certain? Harrison demanded. Because I can see their tactical patterns in the research data. This is exactly how they destroyed the Andromedans 300 years ago, forced the defenders to spread thin. Then hit the core worlds while they're vulnerable. Admiral Harrison activated the base's command center, bringing up holographic displays of the local star systems. Red icons were appearing across the map as Zephyrian forces struck resistance positions throughout the sector. Even if you're right, we can't just abandon those stations. There are millions of civilians who will die anyway if Earth falls, Marcus finished. The Zephyrians don't take prisoners anymore, Admiral. Not from our species. Their research proved that humans are too dangerous to be enslaved. Dr. Vasquez was monitoring communications from the attack stations. Marcus is right. The aliens aren't boarding the habitats, they're destroying them from orbit. Complete sterilization protocols. Then we make them pay for every human life, Harrison decided. Mobilize the fleet. All available ships to intercept those attack forces. No, Marcus said firmly. We prepare for the real battle. The main Zephyrian fleet will arrive at Earth in 43 hours. That's when we make our stand. How could you possibly know their timing that precisely? Marcus gestured toward the tactical display, his implants interfacing directly with the holographic systems. The star map shifted to show projected fleet movements based on Zephyrian naval doctrine from the research data. Their attack patterns are completely predictable once you understand their psychology. They always follow the same tactical sequence: probe, feint, overwhelm. The display showed the Zephyrian main fleet approaching Sol System on a vector that would arrive exactly as Marcus predicted. Harrison stared at the projection with growing comprehension of what they were facing. 800 ships, she whispered. We have 47 vessels capable of system defense. Ship count doesn't matter, Marcus replied, already formulating strategies that utilize the aliens' psychological profiles against them. We're not trying to win a conventional battle. We're going to break their will to fight, explain. Marcus pulled up detailed biological data on Zephyrian command structures. Their species evolved as pack hunters with strict hierarchical dominance patterns. Remove the alpha predators and the rest become paralyzed by indecision. The research data includes complete genetic profiles of every Zephyrian fleet commander. Dr. Vasquez frowned at the implications. You're talking about targeted biological warfare. I'm talking about using their own weapons against them. They created modified viruses designed to target human neural chemistry. We reverse engineer those viruses to target Zephyrian command personnel specifically. Admiral Harrison recoiled from the suggestion. That's genocide, Marcus. We don't stoop to their level. They already did that to us, Marcus replied coldly. 12 billion humans dead, Admiral. Entire worlds reduced to ash. At what point do we accept that this is a war of extinction? When we lose our humanity fighting monsters. Marcus laughed, the sound carrying disturbing harmonics. I lost my humanity on that research station. What I gained in return was the ability to think like they do, to understand their weaknesses. Would you rather preserve moral purity or preserve our species? The argument was interrupted by another wave of alarms. Communications Officer Peters returned with even worse news than before. Admiral, we're getting reports from Earth. Zephyrian advanced scouts have been detected in the outer system. They're not waiting for the main fleet. They're beginning preliminary bombardment of our orbital defenses. Marcus accessed the Earth defense networks through his implants. His consciousness flowing through communication satellites and defense platforms with supernatural ease. They're targeting our early warning systems first. Standard doctrine for preventing organized resistance. How long before they reach Earth itself? 18 hours if they maintain current acceleration. The main fleet will arrive just as our defenses are collapsing. Perfect coordination. Admiral Harrison made the hardest decision of her military career. All resistance forces fall back to Sol System. We make our stand at Earth. As the orders went out across the resistance networks, Marcus began preparing for what he knew would be humanity's final battle. The Zephyrians had tried to create the perfect weapon against his species. But they'd succeeded only in creating the perfect weapon against themselves. Through the alien implants in his skull, he could feel the approach of the Empire fleet. 800 ships carrying enough firepower to sterilize every planet in the solar system. They were coming to finish what they'd started, to erase humanity from the galaxy forever, but they had made one critical error in their calculations. They assumed that Marcus Chun had died in their torture chambers, that the broken thing they'd created was just another failed experiment. They had no idea that their perfect weapon was now turned against them. Armed with everything they'd learned about breaking civilizations and ready to use it, the war was about to take a very different turn. Marcus stood in the Resistance Command Center, his transformed senses processing data from across the solar system. Earth's defenders were scrambled.